right, welcome everyone to our work session this day, June 4th, 2024. It's 3:30 p.m. We'll get started. The mayor will not be joining us today. She's out of town. With that, will the clerk please call the roll?
Corliss. Here. Halliburton.
Here.
Morales.
Here.
Nash.
Here.
Stead.
Here.
Willetts. 5 present, 1 absent.
Thank you, clerk. First item on our agenda today is the FY 2024 quarterly report presented by Jesse Stevenson from the Finance Department. Jesse, take it away. Jesse, can you double check and see if your microphone's on?
There we go.
Thank
Is
you.
this better?
Yep.
Yeah,
Great.
I hear myself now. So Council President, members of Council, it's my pleasure to speak with you today and present the second quarterly report of FY24. So before I dive into the specifics, I just wanted to give a reminder that we launched a new format in FY23. And so with that, we have a move to an exception-based reporting system where we've tried to focus on improved readability, lifting up decision useful information, and including some new sections, including overtime analysis, vacancy status, and an IBC look back. So with that, I'll take a look at the general fund revenues. So the main takeaway here is that adjusting for the timing of receipt, overall revenues for the general fund are within the anticipated ranges for halfway through FY24. The first property tax distribution was received in January, and we would expect the second distribution to come in around July. And sales and liquor tax distributions are a little bit lagged due to the timing of those revenue sources. But otherwise, all general fund revenue categories are looking pretty good and definitely within the anticipated ranges. Moving on to general fund expenditures. Overall, these are also within the anticipated range halfway through the fiscal year. Personnel had a slight underspend compared to the par level at 49.4% through quarter two. One takeaway is that our average vacancy rate in quarter two has declined from 10.8% in quarter one to 7.1% in quarter two, which is a big improvement. The vacancy savings were partially offset by one-time compensation and overtime expenses. The one-time compensation are typically front-loaded, and these are driven by vacation and sick leave buy-down. In terms of maintenance and operations spending, the M&O, these were marginally below the 50% benchmark, but they were within the normal range of where we would expect to be considering timing and seasonality of these expenses. And I just wanted to lift up that this category also includes contingencies, some of which may not be expended this fiscal year, and there is a summary of those available in the quarterly report. So moving on to unemployment, the takeaway here is that the city of Boise is continuing to enjoy relatively low unemployment rates. We are comparing favorably with the U.S., the state, the MSA, and the county. And for quarter two, our unemployment rate fluctuated between 3.1 and 3.3%. So just a quick summary of the economic conditions and the overall quarterly report. So we're enjoying low unemployment, although there are still relatively high interest rates. And while inflation is stabilizing, it is not quite returned to the historic norms that we would expect it to. Overall, general fund expenditures are projected to end the year slightly below budgeted levels. However, this has been planned for, and there is $6 million in the FY25 budget with some of these planned underages. Vacancy levels continued to decrease. As I mentioned, we had a 3.6% decrease from quarter one, and M&O expenses are projected to end the year slightly below budget. And in terms of revenues, we're expected to meet or exceed budgeted levels overall. two revenue sources that are slightly above budget tracking so far through Q2 are development fees and departmental revenue. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Council? All right. Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate it.
Mr. President.
Oh,
just quick
Councilmember
comment.
Halliburton.
I remember what these used to be like a couple of years ago and how much easier it is for us to navigate now, both in the form that you send us in the presentations, as well as the vacancies, which are always really nice, I think, for us to see. And so I just want to say thanks again for the hard work in making this really easy to understand, both for us and for the public. And then to make it really easy for us to see those vacancies, and congrats to our HR department for getting those vacancies down even more. Still a little ways to go, but like we should always celebrate really good progress. And I think that we're in a good spot. So thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesse. All right. Next up, we have Deanna. Deanna to present on the district almanacs. Deanna not here with us. All right. We will jump to the next item on the agenda and come back if somebody wants to track down Deanna from PDS. We have Wendy is Wendy here? Okay. We're doing an ERP overview. I see Sarah here. Well, you can go. Okay. All right. All right.
Okay.
Sarah, thank you for being here. Can you take it away and give us the ERP overview?
Yes, Council President, council members, I'm Sarah Borden. I'm the Human Resources Director. We had planned to have Alex Winkler here. She'll come in. I'm going to take her part and maybe she can take mine, or we'll just go with the flow. No worries.
We're running a little ahead of schedule, so I appreciate everybody helping us out here.
And I'm happy to speak a little more slowly. I tend to get going way too fast. So what we wanted to do, you've heard us in the recent past even talk about the ERP, the Enterprise Resource Planning Tool. And I know a number of you are very familiar with those. What they do, you use them in your day jobs all the time. What we want to do is just give you a one-on-one, an overview for those who may not be as familiar with it, sort of the why we're here, what our timeline looks like, some of the senses of urgency. Oh, sorry, I didn't even look to see if that was pulled up. Thank you very much. So just an overview. So feel free as we go through this to ask whatever questions you have. It's going to be very high level and pretty basic. We'll get into more details as time goes by, but this is kind of a level set to make sure we're all on the same page. Okay. What is an ERP? Enterprise Resource Planning. It's really integrated software solution for your people, assets, and money. So finance, HR, procurement, it's sort of the guts of the work we do and making sure you have the right system with all the integration points. So examples are creating and managing employee information, creating and managing invoices for suppliers, receiving and tracking payments. So you kind of get, like I said, it's the guts of the work as we do it, and not having multiple systems trying to do all the same thing. Would you like to jump in?
Sure.
All right, welcome.
Hi, I'm Alex Winkler. Nice to see you guys. I love that we're so ahead of schedule. This is great. Yeah, so at its core, an ERP is an integrated software solution. We like to think of it as a central hub that connects all the essential functions of our city. It helps us manage our most valuable resources, like our people, employees through HR, our assets like buildings and vehicles, and our finances. So this translates to managing everything from payroll and employee benefits to creating invoices, tracking payments for city services. In essence, an ERP allows us to streamline how we handle day-to-day ops across various departments. Some examples are, imagine the HR department recruiting a new employee. The ERP would manage their entire life cycle, from application processing to onboarding to payroll. Similarly, when a contractor repairs a city park fountain, the ERP would handle creating the invoice, ensuring timely payment. Residents paying their sewer bills, the ERP would track those payments and update financial records. So why is an ERP so important? The ERP's impact is truly citywide. It touches every resident, who interacts with our services from park maintenance to permit applications. It also connects us with thousands of external stakeholders, including vendors, contractors, and state agencies. Think about functions like payroll, managing invoices we receive and send, and generating financial reports. The ERP is the backbone for each of these activities. In short, it's one of the most extensive and crucial software systems in our entire city organization. And now I'd like to pass it over to Linda.
Hi, so I'm going to give you a little bit of information on where we're at with our current ERP, and then I'm going to go into a case study of accounts receivable of the things that we currently don't like about our current system. So the current Lawson system was implemented in 2013. Since that time, DFA and HR have focused a lot of time and energy on creating solutions and workarounds to make the system work effectively. For example, when they launched in 2013, there was no reporting that was available with out of the system. So IT, along with a DFA analyst, created a manual Excel tool where we could download information to Excel using a macro. And that tool, until very recently, for about the past 10 years, was the only reporting capability that we had within the city for financial data. And also HR has had a very difficult time reporting capabilities and has really struggled in the past to provide basic data like vacancies and turnover rates. Once our current our current state ERP is also a very complex and missing integrations and non-user friendly or missing functionality, which has resulted in the proliferation of ancillary systems, custom reporting, and manual workarounds. For instance, we use OnBase, which is our document retention system for accounts payable workflow, as Lawson doesn't have this functionality. I would go into more detail about some of these challenges with the current system in the case study next on accounts receivable.
Linda, can I interrupt you with a question?
Of course.
Were you here during 2013, the integration of the previous system?
I was not. I joined the city in 2014, right after, about 9 months after implementation.
Are you aware of what that transition might have been like before you had come into the city? Like what did that process look like? Because I would say my experience, I have a good deal of trauma at the state level, having been involved with the Luma process
Yes.
and hearing pitches on that for about 5 years, and then paying for the integration. So what was the last time the city updated its software? What did that look like, if you have
Yeah.
any context?
Prior to Lawson, or do you mean Lawson? So I think,
If Lawson came in 2013, if people remember what that was like.
yeah. Well, so like I said, I wasn't here at the time. I do, from hearing stories and a lot of the lore around the implementation, I do believe that there were a lot of best practices at the time that weren't necessarily followed. And Sarah is actually going to go into what we think a good implementation looks like and what a successful implementation is, and hopefully how we're preparing for that now. I do know that there was a desire to hit a specific timeline for that implementation, and rushing to do so was part of the reason why we had some issues after implementation as well.
I would just
So.
please take into context where I'm coming from when you're presenting, and I'm still very much afraid of the things that we did with that. So
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we are also feeling the trauma from the previous implementation as well, and do not want to make the same mistakes of the past. Absolutely. Our current system, our Lawson version 10, is an on-prem system, and it does reach end of life in 2030. The move to a cloud-based system, whether we upgrade via Lawson or whether we choose a new vendor, will be the equivalent of a new implementation. This presents an exciting opportunity to take a giant leap forward in functionality and efficiency. So accounts receivable, or as we call it, AR in finance, is when we bill customers or send an invoice for payment due to the city for things such as utility billing, property rental payments, loan payments, false alarm fees, municipal irrigation district billings, etc. AR does not include revenue collected at the point of sale, such as park and rec fees, food and beverage sales, or development fees. Citywide, we collect approximately $122 million annually in AR. Our current AR system in Lawson demonstrates many of the challenges within our current ERP, as we discussed previously. For example, the AR functionality in Lawson lacks adequate reporting and controls. There's no easy to read document or consumable AR reports that show AR by department or AR by vendor over a given time period. We cannot create monthly billing statements or customer transaction history. And currently Lawson can post credit memos without system authorization, which creates the need for manual steps to ensure good controls. There is no capability to produce human readable invoices. We currently use a bolt-on system called MHC to be able to do that. The system cannot reconcile AR to cash transactions with data with cash data with bank data. We have also implemented a homegrown system, bolt-on system to handle these reconciliations. However, this system needs frequent maintenance from IT. And it is significantly, the AR functionality in the system is significantly less efficient from a user perspective. The AMR module in Lawson is meant for inventory and not services. This means billings are tied to item numbers, which must be set up alongside new customers, which is an arduous process. It takes as many as 3 times more steps to set up a billing in Lawson versus other AR systems. Because of this poor functionality, there has been a proliferation of ancillary systems, manual workarounds, and reconciliations. We currently have 7 separate AR systems within the city, including Lawson. The manual upload and reconciliation of utility billing and cash data into Lawson takes approximately 96 hours per month between staff members in utility billing and finance. As mentioned, the upcoming implementation of a new cloud-based ERP system is a great opportunity to take a giant leap forward in functionality and efficiency. So I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah, and she's going to talk about what we believe a successful implementation looks like, why the time is right for this project, and next steps.
Okay, thanks, Linda. And certainly, Council President Nash, we would love to hear of your experience and hopefully not make you relive the trauma, but there's lots of lessons to be learned. And we've all been following that closely to see what is and isn't working in that implementation, so we try not to make those same mistakes. So let me just talk to you a little bit more about just what we know a successful implementation might look like. And a number of us have done these before other places, so we know it's hard and we know we have to be really well prepared. So the first part is just executive sponsorship. The 3 of us have been connected at the hip for the last couple of years about this. This isn't new, but we're ready with budget and different requests to kind of move forward. So we've got solid sponsorship and we're all working well together. People and function alignment, we've been going through redesigns, reorgs, just getting our team stabilized and feel like we're now matured enough to be able to work together and have the right people and resources to do the implementation. Staffing is always a big deal. How do we make sure we have dedicated and continuous project teams and subject matter experts so you have a continuity in the project and it's not a fits and starts, somebody left, somebody's on, now we have to get them up to speed, that kind of thing. We've been through those implementations and those are no fun. So how do we ensure we've got that? And that often requires backfill resources, so we're well prepared for that. The next one is one that back in my old days, we would do it opposite. We would understand our current practices and then we'd say, oh, what's the closest thing we can get to how we do it today? We don't do it that way anymore. We get a system and we hope the experts have been out designing the best in class systems in a competitive market. And then we say, okay, how do we adapt the way we do work to the system as it exists? The other way meant we had to keep creating our homegrown fixes because we weren't in alignment with the system we just paid a whole lot of money for. So we're a whole lot better and more prepared to do that, and frankly, really excited about that. And we've been doing a lot of different process design in other areas, so we've got some expertise there. And then change management. How do we stay ahead of the game and be ready for the change and welcome it as opposed to react to it and panic that we didn't get it right? And oh my God, now what do we do? So just sort of working through the process as it comes. And then it doesn't end with go live. That's a lovely day, but life goes on after that and we have to keep a sustainment plan. So how do we continue to maintain that? And then just the why now, which I think we've hit on a number of different ways, but the current version is at end of life in 2030, which seems like a ways out, but all of the organizations on the same system are going to be going for that too. And those who wait are going to not get the best implementers. It's going to, everyone's going to be vying for themselves. So we need to get really ahead of it. We want to have continuity of operations. We don't want to get so close to the deadline that something stopped working and now we got to patch that while we're trying to bring in a new system. And then the organization's ready. We've talked about the people side, the structural side, preparing ourselves well. getting better economies of scale? How do we have a system that is easy, effective, and we can spend our time on strategic work for the community, not on 4 different checks of the same piece of paper because we're not sure it's accurate? How do we refocus? Then we can refocus our efforts on addressing complex business needs and scale as the city grows, because we are getting bigger and bigger all the time. So I think there's any questions about what I just said before I pass it to Wendy for the last slide?
Could you speak to what the now is? Is this what like is this the next fiscal year? Is this over a couple fiscal years?
So that's what Wendy can talk to you
okay,
about,
great.
Council President. Yeah, just what the time frame is and how we ramp up, and we'll go from there. Okay, Wendy.
I feel like that was a beautiful segue, and I will take that segue and move on. So as everyone has mentioned, this is not the type of project that any organization takes lightly. There is going to be a series of activities that need to happen very thoughtfully in order for a staff to do this with the least amount of trauma to the organization possible. Over the course of the next fiscal year, we're proposing that we start in October, full sail. We will be spending the time looking at the appropriate backfill, as Sarah mentioned, the project team necessary to move the project forward, looking at the systems requirements. Linda gave us quite a few as she rattled off our current state what they are, and tying everything together to then go out to market. There's 2 main partners that we need. One is the software partner, which will be a rigorous selection process. The second is what we call the integrator. So those are the people that are skilled at implementing whatever software package we pick. So you will be seeing several robust contract packages for each one of those selections as we go through the course of FY25 into the beginning of FY26. So FY26 will be around backfilling, and as Sarah mentioned, ensuring that once we establish the project team, these are people that can stay involved as they gather the knowledge. They won't be stepping out back to their other jobs. And then we have to figure out an operational model and roll through the implementation. This is going to take several years. And if we rush it, then we might be back in the same situation that we're in now. So the team will be balancing that tension act between trying to act quickly so that the state of change and flux doesn't last forever to the organization, but also making sure that we go slowly enough that we're ensuring the best product for the organization. So I think at that point, I would invite questions for any of us on what we've covered today.
Wendy, could you tell me, develop operational model? Does that mean like you've successfully worked with the vendor to get something that's operational for us, or you have something internal that can be used for testing? Could you give me an idea what that means?
I love that. Could I say yes, Council
Okay.
President? So there's going to be a lot of different layers of that. So as Sarah mentioned, these days when we go out to bid for such a big piece of software, we look at best practices from the industry, and then we have to redesign processes, how we work as staff with various roles across the city. So we'll be busy doing that, as well as ensuring that we do get to a minimal viable product so that we can then start testing with the software, adjust, look at our processes, adjust. So it will be a very iterative process until we have a robust system set up. And then it will probably continue iterating and learning as we use it.
Do we have an idea of what the fixed or ongoing cost will be for a system like this? And what are we paying for it now?
I think we do have some initial estimates. We hired a vendor called Soft Resources, which has helped us put together RFP and build our requirements. And they gave us some initial estimates, but those were a couple years old. And so we'd like to update those and give you the kind of what the net, I'm not sure what our latest greatest is we're paying for currently for Lawson either. So we could kind of come back to you with both those numbers.
Do you have an idea if this is something that we need to be putting away for consistently, and then one
Yeah.
upfront cost and then an ongoing maintenance cost?
Yeah, Eric can speak to this, but we've had a placeholder in our CIP budget for several years now.
Okay.
We kind of just keep pushing it out based on when we think we're ready to
Mhm.
move forward with the RFP and implementation. And I believe will see in the FY25 budget some costs associated with this project related to getting our backfills and the project team on board and doing the work that we need to do to issue the RFP and prepare. And then with the majority of costs, I think you're going to see in FY26.
Are there, uh, when you had talked about like trying to adjust our processes to match the software, the more customizations that we have in this, does that increase the ongoing maintenance costs, potential bugs that might pop up? How does the city weigh those?
I like your question, Council President. It does. The more customizations, scripting that we do, as the software vendor updates the tool, sometimes it renders that scripting or that code that we customize no longer usable. So yeah, the more customizations we do, the more maintenance we have to perform. It is a little easier with software as a service offerings, which is what we'll be going to. So today our system is all on-prem. And so we have to upgrade it in place. It's taken us over a year to upgrade to the latest version because of all of the ancillary code, all of the extra custom reporting, all of the jobs that run every night. So we expect the new system, when we go to this software as a service vendor, to be easier to update and upgrade. So that is a lot of value that we'll be getting from this new system. So that is a good thing, because then we'll be able to focus more on, oh, do we want to update to that latest feature that they put in there instead of spending so much time just upgrading custom scripting, et cetera.
Councilmember Morales?
Yeah, Council President. I think what was mentioned about going live before you're truly ready kind of resonates with me. I think sometime in our free time we'll have to compare trauma on enterprise resource systems that have changed over, and I've definitely seen that where the deadline gets extended a little bit. Eventually, though, you just go live and it may not have been fully ready. So when you talk about targeted completion of implementation, fiscal year 29, and you're talking about end of life, the system's end of life being 2030, it doesn't sound like there's a ton of runway there for maybe, any kind of further testing or whatnot. Is the targeted completion like that's what's expected? It could be earlier. Is that the soonest best case scenario? How much runway is kind of there after that target that's there right now?
Good question, Council Member Morales. That is kind of the latest that we'd possibly want to go live. We would be targeting for a little bit earlier than that. So that is kind of like the latest we need to be doing 29 because we need to get off by 30. So that is like, we'd hope to be going sooner than that. But that's the latest. Any other questions?
Councilmember Corliss?
Yeah, Councilmember President. Alex, thank you very much for this presentation. I can't imagine our using 9 different systems to run our ARs. So the one question is as we put our cost analysis together of what that's going to be and what we pay today is what those systems that may be going offline as we bring this in. And I had a similar comment with Morales is that fiscal 29 looked pretty far away when we're looking at selection and fiscal 25 or 26. So I hope to see us pull that in to what's reasonable. Alex, will you be making a selection for the team who's going to be selecting that product?
It'll be a shared decision amongst the impacted executives. So it absolutely will be a shared decision based on the executive steering committee that we're putting together right now.
Great. One other comment, Council President Nash. Today, the city's using Lawson that's provided by Infor, and Infor is the same manufacturer of the Luma system that the state selected.
That is correct.
It looks like we have identified project team this fall. Do we anticipate that there's going to be an identified project manager of that's coordinating efforts between the various departments?
Absolutely. Yes, we will have an assigned project manager for this effort from late summer all the way through implementation.
Okay.
Is the plan.
Council, any other comments? I do just have a final ask that none of that I got you all here. This is something that is I think about a lot, government efficiencies, and don't get to talk about a lot. But there's a great book I would highly recommend. It's called Recoding America, where government is failing in the digital age and how we can do better, written by an individual who was responsible for fixing healthcare.gov. If you don't have time for a book, there is a podcast that talks about it. Ezra Klein, the book I wish every policymaker would read. So would strongly encourage those of you who are involved in that to look for ways that we can implement best practices. It sounds like you're already on that path, but I think there's a lot of lessons learned from folks who've come before us on stuff like this. But I'm really proud of you for the work you've put into this, and it shows you've thought about this a lot. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Council President. Council.
Okay. Deanna, thank you. Sorry we were running a little ahead of schedule. We probably caught you off guard earlier. But if you want to present to us on the district almanac. Eric, if you could keep it down in the back.
Hello, council members. My name is Deanna Dupuis. I manage the city planning and design team within the Planning and Development Services Department. And it is my pleasure to connect with you all today to share a little bit more about our team and the Council District Almanac. Before we dive too deep into the Almanac, I wanted to provide a brief introduction to our team, since we're not the typical planners that you're seeing on most Tuesday nights. My team, which is Andrea Tuning, Lena Walker, Kayla Duclos, and we actually have an intern, Adam Matrai. We focus on planning at the city scale, and our work largely falls within one of these 4 buckets, these topic areas. First, we cover long-range planning, hoping to incorporate kind of a balanced long-range view into many citywide decisions, as well as maintaining and stewarding our city's comprehensive plan, Blueprint Boise. Additionally, we focus on plan development, which is to help further our understanding of specific areas within the city or specific topics. And this is done through corridor, neighborhood, and other kind of topic area master plans. Additionally, we do policy development and regulatory reform, which this is maybe what we're maybe most known for recently, which is the drafting, the adoption of the modern zoning code, and its continual evaluation. And then our team is really comprised of some really highly skilled staff who bring a lot of expertise with regards to research, mapping, and analysis, which is kind of the reason I'm here today to talk about one of our products, which is the Council District Almanac. The Council District Almanac builds on our team's commitment to bring kind of data-driven analysis into kind of the community conversation. And this is an update and even an augmentation of a 2020 work product that we created, which was the Neighborhood Data Almanac, which really looked at the city, but using neighborhood associations as the geographies. We decided to update this, and we had a lot of great success with the Neighborhood Almanac, and decided to update it, but to really focus on council districts as the geography. So that's where we're here today. And so today's presentation is going to be really a preview. We're in our final stages of production and kind of crossing our T's, dotting our I's. And so when we have that final document, we will print and deliver it to you, as well as posting it on the city's website. Councilmember Corliss, you're the lucky star for the preview. But here, this is what we have to show today. And this is really a new and improved resource. And the goal here is to provide at a glance demographic, housing, and community data, as well as introducing the community to our council district geographies, as they are new and different from neighborhood associations, not all of them the same, as well as kind of using this as a resource to identify focus areas, track trends over time, and then kind of offer guidance to help understand our districts, identify strengths, opportunities, and inform decision-making. As we began to build out the Almanac, we really wanted to make sure it was useful, and this is why it's an augmented version of the Neighborhood Association Almanac. So we reached out to many different agencies and different departments, and really there was no shortage of data to provide. I mean, everyone had something they wanted our community to know about and have it in a single location. But when we started organizing it, most of the 70 data points, which will be included for each district, kind of fell in one of these buckets on the screen. We wanted to know who's in our communities, what type of housing do they live in, how do they get around, and then kind of what are those special assets that are within each area. We drew from a variety of data sources. Like I said, we reached out to council, or we reached out to departments and external agencies and kind of collected all of that. Primarily the demographic or kind of more nationally tracked information is going to be from the 2020 census or the 2021 ACS estimates. So if you're really interested in this, this will be explained in detail in the guidebook so you know where all the information is coming from. But it was a very similar methodology as what we did for the neighborhood associations. And so I'm going to just skip through some previews. This is draft, so some things may tweak before you see the final production, but kind of our front cover page, these are 4 pages of information, and each district will look very similar, but have obviously different data. So we start with who's in the neighborhood and that general boundary. Then we move into our housing, and different details about the kind of businesses, who's in there, who's in kind of cultural organizations, and then a lot of things focused on community services. Next, we cover parks and natural systems, and then some mobility details. And then the last page provides kind of an at-a-glance map where you're seeing where those assets are located physically across the city, as well as some other details around infrastructure and planning and development. And so with that, that's the preview. Can't wait till the final draft. And with that, we're going to move into that final production. We'll publish it and post it on the city website. And then as our team is kind of charged with data-driven decision-making, we'll kind of look at that from a benchmarking and metrics standpoint. And then the goal here is to update this every 2 years. And so with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Councilmember Stead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tiana, thank you so much for doing this. I can't wait to get my hands on it. Can you remind me when that first drop, when we'll see it?
Council Pro Tem Stead, very soon. Very soon.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, and this is really like a shout out to our community engagement team. They have done such a great job at designing this and making sure that it's one thing to see an Excel document with 70 pieces of data times 6, and then another thing to make it into a really easy to use tool. So we're very close.
Cool. Thank you so much for all your work.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Halbert.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Couple questions. So I think my understanding is that this will replace the neighborhood almanac. So that sort of specific neighborhood by neighborhood data, we won't necessarily be collecting as much as the entire district. Is that correct?
Councilmember Halliburton, at the moment, that is the plan. We had several talks with Energize throughout kind of the last several years about should we update it, what's the best geographies to use, and we've landed on the council districts.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think it'll be exciting to look at it that way, and to explore things that way. I may have missed you saying this. Were you also in that almanac? Is it collecting socioeconomic status, any kind of vulnerable communities or anything like that in there as well?
Councilmember Halliburton, yes, we have we have it under demographic data, and then which we have income, we have percent non-white population, different details about housing. So yeah, we do have some of that information.
Yeah, wonderful.
I think it would be on this front page.
Oh, I had such a great opportunity yesterday. I got to meet with Director Santos, who's the U.S. Census Bureau director, who was just happened to be in Boise yesterday, and got to talk about some of their new tools that they had available for the city, including some of tools that are focused on resilience and socioeconomic status and a lot of variety of things there. And it sounds like they're offering so many new tools that are allowing us to really look from a disaster preparedness lens or from other types of lenses to serve vulnerable communities, and heat maps and all these different types of things, that might talk about who's sensitive to, if we were to go through, a really hot period of time during the summer or a cold period of time somewhere else. And so it'll be really interesting to see how we can continue to layer on information in some of these areas and figure some of that stuff out. So I'm excited to see how this all pans out, and I think it'll be a great tool to use.
Thank you. And just to add to, we're also very interested in doing that. And that's kind of why presenting this kind of in the body of work that our team does, as being kind of staff who are not only interested, but can have that skill to bring in kind of some of that background as we make decisions, is something we're really interested in doing.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Okay. Thank you, Deanna.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Tessa, here to present on from PDS, here to present on the micro mobility program update. Give her a second to get the deck pulled up. Welcome back, Tessa. Take it away.
All right. Well, Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. So again, my name is Tessa Grieger, and I manage the Mobility and Public Spaces program in the Planning Division. I also oversee our shared micromobility program and our contract with Lime, working closely with partners in other departments, including Tyler Johnson on the enforcement side, Bree Brush with the mayor's office. Community engagement has been critical in the work that we've done around education and outreach. And then we're working closely with various community partners and organizations to make sure that this is a successful program. So appreciate the opportunity to be here today, now that we are nearly a year into this new contract, new program with Lime. We're excited to be back to be able to provide an update on how things are going, to provide some information on what we've seen as far as ridership trends, and then we'll talk about some of the areas of focus that we've really been invested in over the past few months and what we're excited about moving forward over the next few months as well. And then next steps. So as we look to July, we will be recommending a contract renewal. So we'll talk about that as well, and would like to affirm direction from City Council on that next step as well. So first, I just want to take a quick step back, kind of look at what we're seeing as far as the state of shared mobility in North America and kind of the evolution there. So dating back to 2008, this was when we saw the first docked bike share, modern bike share system in the United States, and that was in Washington, D.C. Fast forward about a decade, that's when we started to see micromobility dockless programs start to take hold in cities around the country. And then over the past several years, we've really seen an evolution of different device types, including pedal bikes, e-bikes, obviously e-scooters, and we're continuing to see some of those device types evolve as well as we move forward. What we saw coming out of the pandemic was that micromobility was really a resilient transportation option for community members and for communities. We saw ridership quickly bounce back to pre-pandemic levels following the pandemic, and that was really exciting to see. When this data was collected at the end of 2022, just over 400 cities in North America had some type of micromobility program in place, and that was largely in the United States. The chart on the right, that's really just looking at the breakdown in terms of the different vehicles or devices that are out across North America and what that looks like. So about 65% of those vehicles are within dockless systems, and then about 35% of those are docked bike share systems like we used to have here in Boise several years ago. And then over the years, there's been research looking at the different benefits of what micromobility, shared micromobility provides to community members, and they've found a whole host of different benefits, which I think we're seeing here in Boise related to economic development, providing access to jobs, providing jobs, looking at physical activity. People are using these to get out and recreate in their communities. And then, of course, being able to provide a benefit to our climate, reducing the number of car trips that we're seeing around town. So background here in Boise, since 2018 or between 2018 and 2023, we were managing micromobility operators through our licensing program, and that was through Tyler's department. In 2022, the city, with support from City Council, decided to move forward with a competitive RFP process in order to select a single provider, a single company, to really look at how we can develop a comprehensive shared micromobility program as a partnership between the city, other partners in the community like Boise State University, and that provider. So through that process, we selected Lime, and that contract was adopted in July, so July 11th of last year. This contract is an annual contract, but it has the option to renew for up to 4 additional annual terms. And so that's what we're looking to do come July. And then just so everyone knows, we also receive an annual contract fee from Lime. So that would happen again with this contract renewal. And then we are receiving a percentage of the ridership revenues on a monthly basis. And that's going back into supporting our staff, supporting some of the investments that we're making back into the program, which I'll talk about here shortly. So program goals, at the end of the day, the reason that we're really invested in this program and invested in seeing it succeed relate to furthering the city's goals around mobility, climate, equity, and safety. So we're seeing this providing a reliable, low-cost transportation option for community members throughout Boise, reducing car trips and furthering our climate goals. One of the big opportunities that we've seen, and we've seen this play out with how the trips are being taken here in Boise, is that this is providing a first mile, last mile connection to transit. And that's something that was really important to us. And then with the program itself, we were really focused on implementing strategies to increase equity and access, and then expand user education and minimize conflicts, whether it's with the devices, where they're being parked, or how users are using those. So just transitioning here, high level overview of what the program looks like today. Our fleet is comprised of a range of 600 to 800 e-scooters, and then a range of 150 to 350 e-bikes. In addition, Lime has what they call their Lime Assist vehicle. It's basically a motorized wheelchair that they'll provide to community members at no charge on demand. So they'll deliver that to the community member's house or wherever they would like to pick that device up, and then they'll come back after they're done using it. Pricing, our base pricing currently is $1 to unlock and 36 cents per minute. We also have other ride passes that are available depending on how the user would like to use the device and for how long. But the pricing that we have been most excited about, and one of the big reasons why we selected Lime in the first place, was the Lime Access Program. This provides 70% discounts for low-income community members to be able to use micromobility. In addition to that, we have 50% off rides that start within designated equity focus areas in Boise. And then in our contract, we require Lime to deploy a certain percentage of their devices in those equity focus areas so that we're ensuring people can actually have access to a bike or a scooter when they need it. So there are a whole host of other elements and components of this program. I won't go into all of these, but just to say that we have a variety of requirements for Lime to ensure that they're meeting our expectations and the community's expectations, and that we're really providing that comprehensive program that aligns with our goals. Efficient operations, a couple examples of this. So the devices have swappable batteries. So that's helping to reduce some of those trips that would be made to replace the batteries. In addition, they have electric vans that they're using to go out there and do their operations on the street. They have a local warehouse off of Cole Road. That's the picture that you see on the right. They've extended invites to all of you if you're ever interested in touring that. It's actually a pretty cool facility. Customer service, Lime has been fantastic to work with. They've been very responsive to issues that arise, and then responsive to us coming up with new ideas and new strategies for how we can engage with our community. Education and outreach, parking management, those are probably the biggest things that we've been focused on with this program, and I'll talk more about a few details there. So data highlights, ridership since July, since last year, we've seen about 433,000 trips taken using Lime, and fewer by bike, but we also have fewer devices. So about 8% of those have been taken using the e-bikes. And that equates to about a quarter of those trips replacing what would otherwise be a trip taken by a car. So that's pretty exciting for us to see. The very confusing graph there, that's hard to read, basically the takeaway is that we've seen an increase in micromobility trips since we've moved forward with this new program. And that's something we've been very excited to see, and, you know, certainly a goal for why we were moving in this direction. I'll highlight I think it was October 7th, Boise had the 14th highest ridership in the world, and that was the homecoming game day. So that's pretty significant. Lime is operating all around the world in cities like Berlin, much larger than Boise. So to see Boise kind of make those charts is something that I think is pretty significant. And then just a few other data points here for what we've been seeing as far as the average number of trips taken per device per day. And in the first quarter, how many trips that we've seen, 16,000 first trips. So these are users that are taking a trip for the first time. And then Treefort was a great weekend for Lime and for micromobility. Around 16,000 trips were taken during the course of that event, which is pretty significant. And also just say that Lime was fantastic. They were out there staffing parking corrals throughout the Treefort event, providing education, making sure that the devices were safe and equipped with full batteries, providing helmets, things like that. So this is a ridership map basically showing where we've seen trips since the start of Lime's operations here in Boise. Certainly we're seeing a lot of rides in areas we would expect, downtown, around campus, along the Greenbelt. But what we've been pleased to see with this program is the number of rides and trips that we're seeing in neighborhoods outside of those areas. So you can see the darker pink lines are where we're seeing a higher number of trips taken on different streets. So we're seeing trips taken along Vista, along our best-in-class transit corridors, along State Street, Fairview, in Southeast Boise, and really throughout Boise. So we've been happy with what we're seeing as far as the spread of this program. I'll highlight a few results from a rider survey that Lime conducts. This is conducted on an annual basis, or on an ongoing basis after the rider completes the trip. So this is based on about 342 responses over the last year. A couple questions. So why did people take the trip? What they found was about 29% indicated they used that for a social outing, 23% for joyride or recreation, and then 17% were using it to commute, 8% for shopping errands. So all interesting data, and we're certainly excited to see the trips taken for commuting purposes. And then back to connecting to and from transit, about 12% of the trips from the survey data were used in conjunction with a transit trip. So that might have been taking a Lime device to transit or using that at the end of the trip. So that was good to see as well. And then the question, how would you have made this trip if a shared vehicle had not been available? 49% indicated they would have walked, but 30% indicated they would have used a personal car or rideshare. And that's where we start to see some of that benefit for reducing car trips in Boise. And then finally, just a few other questions and demographics. So asked, what are the primary reasons people choose Lime? First, and these are in order, for fun, and then convenience and fast, being able to get to where they need to go. Primary challenges that were noted, first, nothing, followed by cost, the availability of a vehicle, and then in some cases, the condition of the vehicle. Demographics from the survey, the average rider age 32, 75% were 39 or younger, about 41% female riders, and then 64% riders with income below the median. And about 30% indicated they were tourists. So community feedback, we're hearing feedback from the community. So when we're out at events, when we're out talking to community members, we hear a variety of opinions about the program. Definitely some good. People are really being able to use these devices to get to where they want to go. And then some people have concerns. The graph that I'm showing on the slide here is basically depicting the complaints that have come in, or the comments that have come into Lime and what those are categorized as. So the majority of complaints that they've received relate to not being able to end their ride. And this has to do with the implementation of mandatory parking zones, mandatory parking pins in downtown and on Boise State's campus. We did that in order to improve parking compliance, but that also created challenges with people not being able to end their trips exactly where they wanted to. We have a variety of reporting options. So we encourage people to come directly to the City of Boise's website, where we have a link to be able to report any challenges that people see. Those go directly to Lime so that they can provide a timely response for any challenges that are happening out there in the community. People can also report directly to Lime through phone, through the app, through email as well. And Lime has been very responsive. So when they receive a complaint or a challenge comes up related to parking compliance, they've been out there, in our experience, responding to those as quick as they can. So just to transition here, I'll talk a little bit about some of the primary focus areas we've had over the past several months and moving forward. So I mentioned education and outreach. This is critical to the success of this program. This is critical to our goals with ensuring that we're providing a safe program. So the city, along with Lime, have been out at numerous community events over the course of the year. At those events, providing helmet giveaways, talking about safety, talking about how to park correctly, rider behavior. And then we also have a variety of different digital and print communications that have been distributed in various forms to get the message out about safety and education. That information also goes through the app. So there's different things that are in place to make sure that people know how to operate these devices. And then one thing I wanted to highlight is the stakeholder committee. So this was something we launched last year in conjunction with adopting this new contract. We have representatives from around 20 different city departments and city organizations, nonprofit partners that have been meeting with us every quarter to talk about the program, for us to be able to share what's going on, but really for us to have that opportunity to hear from them, to understand, are there challenges, are there opportunities, how do we make this the most successful program that we can. Parking management, also a very key focus area for us as well as Lime. I'll talk through a few of these here. Mandatory and preferred parking pins. I mentioned the mandatory zones we have in downtown on campus. Outside of that, we have preferred parking pins, and this is where we encourage riders to end their trips, and then they receive a rider incentive. So they'll get $1 off their next trip if they park in these locations that we've identified. At the end of the trip, the rider is required to take a photo, and then on the back end, those are reviewed by Lime, and they can issue rider fines, rider warnings if they're not parked correctly. We also have in-app messaging, emails, digital communications that are in place to ensure that people know how to park and how to leave space for all community members. And then our new education campaign and physical parking corrals I'll talk about here right now. So we've been really excited about this campaign, excited about the graphics. We've gotten communities from other places that have reached out interested in using this graphic. So kudos to our communications team on developing this. But really, we've been focused on getting the message out in numerous ways around how to park correctly, how to ensure that when you end your trip, you're scooting over so that you're leaving enough space for people, whether you're walking with your kids, whether you're in a wheelchair, using a cane, you're leaving enough space for them to be able to access our community spaces, our sidewalks. So I've listed the tactics that we've used. I won't talk about all of those. I'll just highlight a couple. The DBA map, for example, there's 40,000 of those printed. We have a scoot over ad that will be in there, as well as some other information on the program. And then through earned media, we've reached 71,000 people. So this is news that's picked up the scoot over stories. And then our parking corral pilot. This is something that we're really excited about. In research with other cities, we found that this has been really successful for improving parking compliance and giving people indication as to where they should end their trips. So this is something that we've been working on over the past few months, and the goal is to implement marked parking areas or corrals to improve device parking. We're aiming to have these in place as a pilot this summer, with focus areas we've identified being downtown, transit corridors, Vista, Main, and Fairview. And then we're working in partnership with Boise State. They will be installing these on campus. And then we've also identified neighborhoods, including the Lust District and those south of campus as well for pilot locations. This has been a big partnership with Boise State, as I mentioned, ACHD, DBA, Valley Regional Transit, as well as Lime. So we have a few tiers for what these parking corrals will look like. Some are already in place today. These are the former VRT bike share stations, which we have one right out in front of City Hall. These will all be rebranded in, I believe, the next couple of weeks with the signage that you see on the right of the slide. So that will tell users, this is where we want you to park. This is also a location where Lime is deploying their devices as well. Just have a drink of water, sorry. Just losing my voice. So in addition to the bike racks, bike share stations that we have out there, we will be installing in-street and sidewalk level marked parking corrals. The graphic that you see on the left, also designed by our communications team, is essentially what that will look like. We'll have a decal, and then we'll have the edges of a rectangle marked in white that will denote where we want people to park their devices. And then those will be combined in some cases with rider incentives and messaging to encourage folks to end their trips there. So this is difficult to see map, but just showing the locations that we've proposed. Right now, we're looking at about 30 locations plus 10 on Boise State's campus, where we would be piloting these parking corrals, and a few examples of what those locations look like today. One in the Lust District at LaPointe and Sherwood, and then one off of Vista at Targhee. And then finally, we have a new software agreement in place with a company called Ride Report. And this has been really helpful, and we're excited to continue using it moving forward. But it allows us basically to do a deep dive into all of the data that's coming from the scooters and the e-bikes. So we're able to see through this software where the devices are located. We're able to see where trips are happening. We're able to do enforcement with the policies that we've set up with Lime. For example, if we have a policy requiring a certain percentage of devices need to be deployed in downtown or in our equity focus areas, we're able to see through this dashboard if that's actually happening and track that. In addition to this, we have a public dashboard that's available on our website. So the community can go in and see how many rides have been taken, where are they happening, things like that. And next steps, and this is where we would like to obviously answer any questions that you may have and affirm direction with proceeding with what will be a recommendation to renew the contract for an additional year with Lime. We are anticipating that that would be on the council agenda on July 9th. The contract expires on July 10th. There's a chance we may be able to bump that up sooner, but that's what we're looking at right now. We have been working closely with Lime on some anticipated amendments to the contract. So that would include some of the items that I've identified here, including a recommendation to increase the base pricing to 39 cents a minute, and that would be a 3-cent increase over what we have today. And then some other proposed changes around device minimums and maximums, and this would adjust that so we have seasonal thresholds essentially. Some changes to staffing that would correspond to those device minimums and maximums, so giving Lime a little bit more flexibility to scale down when they need to, when they don't have as many devices out on the street, and scale up when they have more devices. And then some changes to the rebalancing language, as well as clarifying some of the ADA language that we have in the contract. So those are at a high level, the anticipated adjustments. We're still confirming some of the details with legal and with Lime as well on these. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thanks, Tessa. Councilmember Halliburton.
Tessa, well, first of all, thanks for the great presentation and then thanks for working on this program. It was a mess a few years ago. You know, we had a bunch of different companies that were out there, and I don't know that anybody was trying to do a bad job, but it wasn't working. So we move over to this model, and it's clear that it's working a lot better. And I think that Lime's done a great job at all the things that you mentioned, and then also their involvement in the community as well. They've sponsored a lot of different events. They've been active in the community. They've been active with stuff with the city of Boise. So they've been a good community partner. Couple questions. One, with some of the funding that comes to the city, do you know what the breakdown is that out of the 39 cents per minute?
I do. So we receive for the ridership revenue, we receive 10 cents per trip. So that at this point is, I think we've received about 33,000 since the start of the program. And then we also have the annual contract fee, which is 100,000.
Great. And do you know, like with those minute charges, does that go into our great big city bucket, or does it go back to a specific area within the program?
President Nash, Councilmember Halliburton, with the minute, sorry, could you clarify?
Oh, I guess I'm just asking if the funds that we generate from the bikes being used, if it comes back into some of our mobility programming that we do at the city, or if it kind of goes back into a larger bucket for the entire city.
President Nash, Councilmember Halliburton, great question. Yes, we are using that funding. The ridership revenue comes into PDS, and we are turning that around to fund improvements for this program specifically. So we've used that funding to date to pay for the contract that we have with Ride Report for the dashboard. And then we will be using the funding to pay for the micromobility corrals that we're planning to install this summer.
Great. Awesome. And as far as like some of the recommendations and direction, I don't see anything on there that's alarming to me. I was going to ask about the pricing because I anticipated it would probably be going up. I actually thought it was going to be going up a little bit more than that. So no major concerns there, at least from me. One thing I think it looks like you're already doing this a little bit when we're examining some of those corrals is that it looks like there's some spots where it makes sense to combine, you know, bike parking that's available for anyone with the scooter stuff, which is great because then it serves sort of two different purposes and other areas where maybe it's more focused on the scooters. But I think the more that we can examine areas that have dual purposes, and if investments can not only serve the scooters, but the neighborhoods and where people might be parking their bikes, that would be great. Looks like you're already doing that. So again, good job.
Councilmember Morales.
President, thank you so much for the presentation. Just being downtown as often as I am, I've definitely noticed a huge improvement and great ridership. I had a question about like no ride zones. So you can't take this for a spin at the bike park by the military reserve. Is there a map for where those areas are? And is it the stakeholder group that actually assesses that at some point, you know, throughout the year as complaints come in, or how do those areas get designated?
Council President Nash, Councilmember Morales, great question. Thank you. So we do have several areas in Boise that are either no ride zones, slow zones, and then in some cases, no parking zones, so you can't end your trip there. Once those are identified, if a community member or if a stakeholder organization recommends that they would like to see one of those in place, we respond quickly to Lime, and they're able to activate that really within minutes. So we recently had one come through from Boise Parks about Catherine Albertson's, making sure that that's designated as a no ride zone. So we're able to respond to those really quickly. Your question about does the stakeholder committee review those? We have not had that opportunity to dive into that, but I think that would be a great thing that we can focus on in year two, looking at, are these the right locations? Are there any others that would make sense for us to revisit or implement moving forward?
Okay, just to clarify, so Lime, as part of the contract, if Lime is told this needs to be a no ride or a slow ride zone, then they do it. There isn't a, now we don't want to do it kind of thing.
That's
Great.
correct.
Councilmember Stead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few questions. Thanks, Tessa. This is great information. And I love riding a scooter. I ride my bike a lot, but sometimes I'm not wearing a bike riding outfit and it's easier to jump on a scooter. So I appreciate that opportunity. I have a few questions. So I love the parking corrals. Are those restrictions, is it restricted, I guess, by Lime? Is Lime encouraging folks to go there, or are we just painting that ground?
Council President Nash, Council Pro Tem Stem, great question. So it depends. If it's in a mandatory parking zone, we have mandatory parking pins. So right now, all of those are virtual pins that you see in the app, and you are restricted to parking within those general virtual zones. So you can't end your trip outside of those.
Cool.
As we install the physical parking corrals, so the paint, in some cases, we may be adding bike racks. Those would, if they're in the mandatory parking pins, those would fall under those same constraints. So you would be required to end your trip at that location. Outside of those will be preferred parking pins. So riders will be incentivized to end their trips there. So they'll get $1 off their next trip. And then we'll definitely be using that in messaging, ensuring that people know where these are, so that they are encouraged to end their trips at those locations.
Cool. Thank you. I have a couple other questions, Mr. Mayor. I think that's great. I did lots of scootering in Budapest last spring, and they do that every block or two. They have the parking corrals, and it really keeps them off the sidewalk and from cluttering the right of way. So I think that's a really good move. So two other questions I'll just ask at once. One is, are there restrictions on kind of like how far out of downtown you can ride, or is the whole city of Boise accessible by scooter? And then also, and I guess also Garden City along the Greenbelt, things like that. And then the second question was, of that rate increase and the 10% or 10 cents that the city is receiving, will the city receive any part of that increase?
President Nash, Council Pro Tem Stead, my apologies. So with the rate increase, at this point, we have not proposed that there would be an adjustment to the revenue that the city brings in. So that would stay at that 10 cents per trip. And then for your first question, my apologies.
Are they restricted to how far out of downtown or out of the
Thank you.
city or in Garden City?
Yes. So right now, riders are restricted to the city of Boise and Garden City, because Garden City also has an agreement with Lime.
Thank you.
Councilmember Corliss.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. Thank you very much for this presentation. It's really helpful to understand more of the program that we see out there every day. I do have a couple of questions. I'm sorry, I'm going to jump over here real quick. We talked about 70% low-income community members, or low-income community members. How are they identified? Do they have to make an application?
President Nash, Councilmember Corliss, they are able to submit an application to Lime, and they will turn that around within 24 hours, I believe. So they do have to fill out an application online in order to apply to be part of the Lime Access Program. In addition to that, we have what's called a direct enrollment program. So this is where Lime is partnering with a couple of our nonprofits here in Boise to essentially allow those organizations to vouch for community members that may not be able to or may not want to go through that process of applying online. So the Women and Children's Alliance, Idaho Office for Refugees, those are two organizations that we've been working with on that direct enrollment program.
Okay, that's great. Do you know how long the application is good for?
I believe it's good for the duration of your membership with Lime, but
Oh.
that I can follow up to just to
Okay.
confirm that.
Yeah, I
Great
didn't know if you had
question.
to reapply every 6 months or a year. Okay, great. Thank you. And yeah, I know out in West Boise, we're just starting to see more of them come out there, which is really good. I had a couple, I guess, suggestions on the corral locations out in West Boise is maybe for a consideration at the Walmart on Overland and Vanell. It's also really close by the Social Security office where people apply for benefits, and I think that'd be a great location for a corral. Same with on Fairview where the Department of Health and Welfare is, because people come in there physically to go apply for benefits. And just a final thought is maybe instead of white paint for the corrals, maybe use green paint. So it'll be a little more standout for the corrals. But I appreciate this. Oh, I do have one other question. Do city employees get a discount with Lime?
Ooh. Council President Nash, Councilmember Corliss, at this point, we do not, but that's a great recommendation. And we
I
can
think it's
certainly
a
look
great
into that.
recommendation for the contract negotiation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tessa, do we anticipate we'll have to go through a process like we did last summer wherein there was multiple bids for contract? We're not going out to bid for this. We're just renewing a contract.
Council President Nash, we are not, so this would be an annual contract renewal.
Okay, great. I do want to say that I found out after the fact, after we awarded the contract to Lime, that my sister's debit card was attached to my spin account. So it came at great personal expense for me to use exclusively Lime, but I am happy with the results otherwise. So thank you for your presentation, and I'm excited for the direction of this.
President Nash, I do have one other question.
Yeah.
Do the scooters and e-bikes make a sound or are they silent?
Council President Nash, Councilmember Corliss, they are relatively silent, but they will chirp and ding when you enter into different zones. There's a bell, so that there are some noises that.
Yeah, I was
they
just
will make.
wondering if one was coming behind a pedestrian, if you can hear them coming up. If they have that option.
Yeah, great question. I would say the bell is probably the best equipment that's on the devices that would notify other users as folks are coming close. But there is a little bit more noise with an electric device than a standard pedal bike, for example.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Tessa. Appreciate
you.
it. Okay. Seeing nothing further, we don't have an executive session, so we will see everybody back at 6 p.m. tonight for our regular meeting. Thank you.